Welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. Dive deep into humane leadership crafted for today's fast-paced business world. Listen to our podcast on all major streaming platforms and join us as we explore the essence of humane leadership in today's dynamic business landscape. I'm your host, Roberto Torres, a seasoned startup engineering leader, alongside Chris Ollerkin, a Fortune 100 IT leader. Today, we will discuss how does a humane leader coach the team after a company layoff. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Roberto. I'm doing well. I hope everything's going well with you.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much, and I trust the same to you.
Yeah. So company layoffs. You know, we've talked in the past about what are some of the signs one might be coming, but there is not much literature, and surprisingly, HR does not do a lot of training, at least in my experience, of how to coach the team after the layoff actually occurs. And sometimes that can actually be significantly more traumatic to the team than people realize. Because lots of times they don't see the signs coming, and it's a shock. And now all of a sudden, some of their coworkers who they were having lunch with earlier in the week are no longer with the company, and that can be very traumatic for the employees that remain. I feel bad for those who have been laid off, but the humane leader needs to realize that the remaining team is going to need some extra coaching.
Oh, yeah. And they might not see the signs before, but they might have seen it. And they might be grateful, but there will be an impact, like a burn in your skin. That the pain is constantly going after you have been burned. Uh, the thing is, what shall we do as humiliators with the rest of the team? Shall we go one-on-ones? Shall we talk with the team on a group meeting, or is it an ongoing project? Because if a cut was suddenly made a few days before, maybe a new cut could be in the near future. So what could be done?
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen a lot of layoffs in my career, a lot of layoffs. It's too many to even count, unfortunately. And one of the things that I would not recommend, but I saw a lot of leaders do, is just completely ignore that it happened.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
deny it. If someone asks you, hey, I heard, Steve was laid off, they wouldn't deny it, but they literally tried to pretend it didn't happen. And so that maybe the employees, because again, I came from a gigantic company, lots of the employees are so disconnected from each other, it could be months sometimes before they know somebody's gone if they're not in the direct team. So I absolutely would not deny. Certainly if it impacts your immediate team, the best thing that I've found to do is get the team together, usually the day after the impact, and talk about, look, this was, an unfortunate circumstance. Certainly the company doesn't want to hire people and then eventually lay them off. That's a terrible business strategy. That's not, the optimal plan. So they take it very seriously, and we do this as a last resort. But unfortunately, we're not making our numbers, right? And one of our costs that's variable is labor. In a really, really large company, there's a lot of costs that are fixed. You're paying your lease, you're paying your utilities, you're paying for software licenses, you're paying for equipment leases. And unfortunately, if you need to cut the budget by 10%, most of those things are contractual. You can't cut those things. So the only thing left is people. And unfortunately, to get to let's say a 10% cost reduction, and you have all those fixed costs, that could be a lot of people. And so you really need to be direct and honest about it. I never found the approach that other leaders had used of ignoring it or just hoping that nobody will notice that somehow 10% of the people are gone was so foolish. It was ironic. It actually reflected poorly on the leader, because the leader, the employees would then think, well, does the leader think I'm that stupid? I mean, it really, a lot of those leaders lost a lot of respect. So I always tried to get the team together and be realistic. What are we going to do? The labor is gone. Steve, let's suppose that Steve was on our team. He got laid off. That's now our team of 10 is now a team of 9. So let's have some honest discussions about the impact to the team. What do we need to do to make sure we're contributing to the company so that nobody else gets laid off? And just have an honest and frank conversation with the team.
Yeah, indeed. One of the things anyone would have if something like this happens is the question, why? Why these people were laid off? I like these guys. I thought they were productive. Yada, yada, yada. The things is when the people asked, usually they are biased about their perception of what happened with this person, right? You don't know what's going on. So I like your approach, telling the team one day after this. And the thing is, we do not lie. If we do not have the facts and the hard data about it, we do not lie about this. Maybe we could say, I'm going to search, I'm going to find out, but what we could tell them, not what is confidential and it is not possible to say. Excuse me. That is one thing. I remember I have worked for many startups, and I remember that I used to work for a Latvian company here in Mexico. And I remember that they usually, the HR head send an email to the company mentioning all these people have these warnings. If they don't fix their performance and their productivity, they will be fired. That was a shock to me because I haven't seen something like that before. And that was because of those countries in in the upper Europe, they used to do that. They're like wholehearted. So my team, which was a new team, and myself were, my God, what's going on? Is this real? So in that case, I talked with them and I said, this is a different culture that we've been having in previous companies. So we must act accordingly to what it is expected from us. And I remember that 2 months later, 2 people from that list were fired because of their performance didn't get to the level that they had. So people after that, even though, let me tell you, those people weren't related to us, were from a different country. But the thing is, that feeling, that sense of, hey, they could this happen to me if I don't act well? What could be of me? And as we have personalized, maybe someone will have a baby, maybe someone will get married, maybe I don't know, something else. And people get really, really worried about the situation. So what I usually do is talk with my team, and if there is something that could deviate our team from the results that we are expecting to achieve, let's work it out together so everybody could be calm about this, the team, and go one-on-ones and try to answer as best as I could possible the doubts and questions from my team regarding this.
Yes, and I think when the employees perceive the layoff as performance related, so as you're mentioning, yours was performance related, then they feel in my experience, they're less concerned, right? Because they have some control over their performance. Like, I can do a really good job, I can work really hard, therefore I'll be more valuable, I'll be less likely to be laid off. Many, in a large company, many layoffs are literally not performance-based, because lots of times the manager or even the director has zero input. HR and legal get a list of, and this is, again, very large, total groups, right? So our corporate IT environment was well over 3,000 employees. Well, HR would get the list, and they would just go through this 3,000 people list and say, all right, we're taking 300 names. And they would go through the list, and all of a sudden, as the leader, you were told, you're laying off these 2 people. Why? Because HR said so. And those are the hardest ones to manage, because the team feels like, hey, those 2 people were really contributing, and they were really, good performers. They weren't terrible. I would have picked that person instead of this person, because maybe they felt their performance was different. Those can be the toughest to manage, because the criteria that HR might have been using was where they're located. Look, we're closing down our office in such and such a city, and those people were located in that city, so it doesn't matter. We're closing that area down, even though we had a global team with people all over, cities all over the place. That particular city, we're closing everything. Those 2 people sat there, so they're now both laid off. And when it happens like that, the team psychologically feels like they don't have enough control over their destiny. They feel like, hey, I could be next then tomorrow based on that criteria, because it's not about my performance. And those can be the toughest to manage, because then I do believe you really have to start spending one-to-one time discussing it, because for each person, that feeling is going to be significantly different. And if they really fear it a lot, sometimes they cannot overcome it. Sometimes the best solution for that person is to look for another job outside of the company, because, again, depending on the company culture, this may be a regular occurrence, and maybe the best thing that you can do to coach for your employee is to assess them with them together one-to-one honestly, and the best answer might be that, this just isn't the right company for you. You need something that is more predictable, shall we say, from the employee's perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And so again, I think depending on the situation, depending on the size of the company, it can make a big difference in how these layoffs are perceived by the employees. In a medium-sized company, it's almost always performance-based, like you said, and then the employees feel like they have a lot more control over their destiny, right? Because, hey, I met with my boss, I understand my performance, I'm either doing really great, I'm doing average, or I'm doing poor, and they feel they have some control over that. If it's really just, look, the company wants 10% less heads, and HR is deciding with no input from my manager, my director, my vice president, then then they don't feel they have control over their destiny. And that's an honest fear then, right? And you shouldn't deny it. You shouldn't pretend it's not there. You shouldn't ignore it. A humane leader has those honest and frank discussions with the employees. And usually if it's that kind of situation, one-to-one is much better, because you really have to assess and help the person think about their personal situation. It's much different for someone who's 25, not married, maybe doesn't even have a significant relationship. Maybe they want to move. Maybe they want to try a different city, whatever. Hey, great. Maybe that's inside the company and go to a different city. Maybe it's not. Maybe they have a wife who's not working and they have 4 kids. Big difference. Can't pull all those kids out of school and change cities. That's not good. Maybe they're 55 years old and the kids are off in college or graduated and they have their own lives in other cities, and you're close to retirement but would like to move someplace warmer. So great opportunity to go someplace else. You never know. It's each individual person's situation is very unique, and the humane leader needs to understand what kind of layoff was it, what's the company culture, and then what does each one of those individuals need to hear from you or talk to you about to help them rationalize what their best move is for them, right? We as the leader, humane leader, we have a vested interest in the company. We got to try and do what's right for the company, but that humane aspect of us has to help the employee evaluate the situation given their personal circumstances.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And one thing that I suggest for any humane leader to do is to talk as soon as possible with our manager. You know, if we have spoken with our manager before, we could have the biggest, more accurate hard data about the decision that was made, and we could talk with our team. If we haven't talked with our manager yet, it's important for us to talk with the team because we cannot let the team go higher. You know, the anxiety go higher. It's really important for us, excuse me, to do that. One thing also is, let me tell you something. When I used to work at a Germany company here in Mexico, a fintech, the first fintech that I used to work, the guy who was managing the call center team was fired and was given to me. All that team was given to me. And they were, you know, it was totally mayhem. But first of all, they didn't have a culture. There was no guidelines and there was no structure related to the objectives that we had to meet. And the people were really, really scared. Hey, they cut off the head. Are they going to affect us? What is going to happen? And adding to the words that you mentioned, what I try to tell them is to take calm. That guy was fired not because of the results of the team, because he had a different mindset that didn't go along with the companies. So because of that, I was given that job position and to manage that team. And I began knowing each one of the team members that I only talked with them through Slack or an email, but I began talking with them. One thing, they were in Europe and I was in Mexico, so we were there was a remote team. And one thing that is really, really important is to let them know that maybe we cannot control our destiny, but we could control our emotions towards a goal. And the goal is to be a team that could go together and thrive together. If they feel that they are not alone, but they're members of a community, everything will go maybe not better, but we could have any problem solved for the team. Did you see this?
Yep, and I think, you know, you mentioned the difference, recognizing those difference in culture, right? European versus in Mexico, American versus Mexico, American versus England and Germany are all different, right? And the humane leader needs to really think about this, you know, after the layoff. What is the best way to approach each of those different things? Sometimes you may cover the broad topics in the group meeting. Look, the company promised to hit this level in sales and this much in income per share, earnings per share. We didn't make it. This is why they did a 10% layoff. Because it was across the board, I did not have any input in it. The way they decided was they were going to close certain locations. this is how it happened. You have to, within the guidelines that HR will let you disclose, because there are certain things that they will not necessarily. The humane leader was not involved in the decision at all, tell them. If the humane leader was involved in the decision, admit it. I mean, there were times when I had to lay people off, and I had to pick out of the team of, 10, 20, 30 people. You need to pick one or two people. And so I had to admit, I made the final decision. Other times, I just got the list. Here's the list. Next week on Monday, you're going to tell them this. No, hey, I don't think this is right. This is not the person. Doesn't matter. It's too late. Legal has reviewed it. HR's decided. It's out of your control. So admit what you can admit. Never lie, like you said before. Never lie. But realize that culturally, you're going to have to deal with this in different ways, because the way they may feel about it is significantly different. For example, in Germany, the severance package is very extensive. Regardless of your years of service, you really have better financial protections. In the United States, you have almost zero protection. So an American who's facing a layoff usually is going to be much more nervous about it than the German person, because the company could just decide and tomorrow you're gone, and if they chose, there could be zero severance. They could just say, we're shutting down the city and Friday's your last day. Done. So you have to kind of deal with what is legally possible, what does HR allow you to say, and really what is the risk that those employees are facing, and be honest about them and help the employee deal with those emotions, like you said. There are certain factors that they can control. They can control their performance. They can control their emotions. They can, control how much they dwell on it. I don't recommend dwelling on this for weeks and weeks. It's something that we need to have a very frank discussion with our team about the situation, but we need to move on and be productive, or there will be more layoffs, right? So you can't have this as a constant topic then for the next 6 months. This is something that happened. You talk about it. Maybe for a week or two, the topic can come up, but by the second and third week, it needs to be about what are we doing as a team to ensure that we don't face another layoff? What are we doing about boosting our productivity? What are we doing about hitting our goals to make sure that the company's performance does better and layoffs become a thing of the past? You're muted. You're muted.
Excuse me, I was muted.
Just for a second there, yeah.
Yeah, sorry for that. Two things, what you said. The first one is do not mourn. If you mourn, the impact in the team will be totally negative. So we have to apply emotional intelligence with the team. And if we apply emotional intelligence with the team, we will detect which members of the team have a higher sense of urgency related to this problem versus the ones that don't. And the thing is, we had to treat every one of the team different because we are different in the end, And we have to tell the team, let them know the team that we could thrive of this. So even though it wasn't in our department or not, the thing is we could thrive together as a team. So emotional intelligence is really, really important for this.
Absolutely. Completely agree. It is a tough situation that I hope none of the listeners ever have to go through, but these days almost every company goes through some kind of layoff at some point. So it's better to be prepared and deal with it honestly as a humane leader.
Indeed. That's why we are humane leaders.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. So I think with this, we should end this podcast.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to talking to you next week. Have a great week.
Likewise, man. Thank you. Bye.